Okay, good morning all. Good morning, thank you. Wow, no, it's like NCSY over here. So it's quite, for those of you here for Shabbos, though we heard a fascinating Gemara that was briefly mentioned, a Mishnah. Now again, I don't know everybody's background over here, so what did I just say? For those who are unfamiliar, we have what's called the written Torah and the oral Torah, the oral tradition. The greatest body of work of that is known as Mishnah. Mishnah is a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. And the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos tells a fascinating idea which brings out a concept. Perhaps you have noticed that, I don't know if either you have kids or perhaps you were a kid, but you may remember, when you take a look at kids, at least the way people say it, they remember the darndest things, right? They remember. And you say, wow, they have such amazing memories. Kids have such amazing memories. How do they have such amazing memories, right? You tell them something and they remember. How is that possible? Right, so question is, where does it actually come from? And everyone gets into this, when a kid is young, they're like a sponge and they absorb and they take things in. And that's okay, it's true, it's not true, I don't know. What I do know is the following. The Mishnah tells us about someone by the name of Elisha ben Avuya. Does that sound familiar to anyone? Yeah, okay. Someone by the name of Elisha ben Avuya. Yeah, so Elisha ben Avuya was a Tana. If you don't know what a Tana means he's one of the authors of the Mishnah. He's one of the big guns. Unfortunately, he went off on a different path. And for those who weren't here yesterday, right, he acquired a new name. His name was called Ankar. Okay, so Elisha ben Avuya. Now, what does he say? Now, he's mentioned, this is where Rabbi Jacobson he's mentioned one time in the Mishnah by his actual name. And if you take a look, the Mishnah says the following. This is chapter 4, Mishnah 25. At least according to this particular version in the Art Scroll Siddur. There are different versions of this, so it may be 421 or 420 or something like that, but here in 425, it says the following. Elisha ben Avuya Omer, Halome yeled lamahu dome. Someone who teaches a child, what is it compared to? Lidio ksuva al niyar chadash. It's like fresh ink written on a blank new piece of paper. Then we get on to Ve'alomi Zakein. If you want to teach someone who's older, Lamau Doma, what's it compared to? Lidio Ksuva al Niyar Machuk. It's like ink that's written on a smudged or erased paper. Everybody get it? How do kids remember so many things? How are they? Oh my, what a memory. How do they remember? What's the answer? There's nothing in their brain. There's nothing there. It's totally empty. If I told you, remember the number 7, and then a second later you go, 7, that's brilliant. First of all, I only said one thing, and it was right now. But if I tell a kid, remember 7, there's a thing that the Gemara calls Girsa Diyankusa, which means the things that we learn when we're young. We remember the things that we learn when we're very young. We remember these things forever and ever and ever. And we get older and older and older. It doesn't matter. We can always go back to when we were very young, except for one of you who will say, I don't remember. So not you. But everybody else, and it'll be the variable of who you are. Okay, so it could be many of one of you. The point is that we remember things not because kids are necessarily like sponges, but rather because they're like blank pieces of paper. There's nothing at all in their brain. Then you tell them something. Then we get older and we get more information and more information and more information. Then what ends up happening is we get more information, and then we're told something, we're like, oh no, forget that. So we're like, okay. And so we go like that. It's like the Etch-a-Sketch, the Etch-a-Sketch things. You're like, you go like that. And then you start to figure out, some of the kids have no idea what I'm talking about because it's all electric. It's like Etch-a-Sketch, beep, right? But over here, you know what I mean? It's like Etch-a-Sketch things. And we tell them, we go like this, and then we go, and finally they tell you something else. No. What's the number? Okay, the number is, whatever it is, 516, 2, no, I'm sorry. Sorry. 97, no, sorry. Right, it's totally long. So we just hear tons of things, and what happens, it gets erased, and then we rewrite, then we erase, then we rewrite, then we erase, and we get all confused, and we're not sure which is the erased part, which is not the erased part, and then we wonder why we don't remember things. Kids remember things because there's nothing there, and that's why all of us remember things clearly. Like, when they say the expression, I remember it like it was yesterday. First of all, that already is a loss of memory. Why don't you say like today, but okay. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was almost like, I have a memory, actually. I have a memory. I mamish remember this. Like literally as if it was 32 years ago. Because it was. And it was a dream that I had. I dreamed a dream, and this dream, whatever it may have been, I have such a vivid memory of this dream. I think maybe it was my first nightmare. My first nightmare, there was a Gemara and a Stender. I don't know exactly what it was, but it was a dream. Was that not okay? Did I cross? Was that all right? Too much? Anyway, point is, I dreamed the dream. We remember these things and these experiences that we have. You teach a kid. What's it compared to? So this is why this type of class is going to be very depressing for many of you. And for some of you, here's what ends up happening a lot of times. You have in the room people that already messed up their kids. Sorry. Thank you for coming. You maybe want to go to my farki about something else. And then you have those that are too young, meaning they don't have kids yet. And by the time they have kids, they forget what I'm talking about. Right? So what happens is nobody really gains from this. But thank you for joining. I really do appreciate you coming. And I will give you at least one piece of information. Don't put a hot pepper directly in your eye. All right? I just want to make sure you walk through with something practical. Now let's get back to this. And that is, you teach a child what's it compared to. Now, if it's compared to DO, ink, on a fresh piece of paper, that alone won't do anything. You can have ink and paper, but if it's just sitting there, it's nothing until somebody picks up the quill, or apparently the Parker pen, as was mentioned, or you bring up, whatever it is, and you actually write something. Who's writing? Who's the author? If the kid is the blank piece of paper, who's writing the kid's life story? And this is very, very scary. This is very, very scary, at least for the parents. The kids are like, it's not scary. Why? You just wait. You'll see why. We are the authors. We are the authors of our children's lives. And the craziest concept is how kids think that they know things from themselves. I went to my son, one of my sons who's 5 now, and he was tying his shoe. I said, where'd you learn how to tie a shoe? He goes, I just know. I said, how do you know? He goes, well, when I was in mommy's tummy, the malach came. Oh, really? What was the malach's name? Gabriel. How do you know how to tie your shoe? I just know. How do you know? Isn't it funny, parents, when your kids say they just know? Isn't it funny? Isn't it funny that you're not thinking that you're also the kid? You do exactly the same thing? You just happen to be a little bit older? So you think you just know things? Where do you think you get your information from? Where do you think you're raised from? We're raised from experiences that we have. Now, the parents are authors. The friends are authors. The teachers are authors. And can you believe the schools nowadays? The schools. Can't believe those schools. It is true. There are. Actually, I'm not going back into Friday night. I'm just pointing out that there is truth in things that are said in life sometimes. However, understand the fact that the parent is the one who does incredible amount of writing. Now, is it an active thought? The answer is sometimes, and it certainly should be. Somebody asked me last night, can I write a letter for someone? Let's see if you're here. I'm not being chauvinistic, it's a man, unless he's on this side. Anyway, so somebody asked me last night, can you write a letter? You just come and say, can you give me a bracha? Can you give me something? I don't know. They said, can you write a letter for someone not here? I said, sure. What do you want me to write? They go, what? You're lost for words? I said, no, I'm not lost for words. I'm lost for writing. Because words we could just throw out. To write something, you actually are committing something. Now, we're also committing when we say, don't forget I just don't think like that. Perhaps you also have my issue. That's where it's easier just to say things, just to throw them out. Could you write that? Whoa, write that? Do we stop and think that we're writing, that we're authors, that we're writing something that probably will affect them their entire lives? We're writing, we're authors. So, one who says, all right, so what do you want from me now? Like I'm a little bit, my kid is older and what am I supposed to do? The answer is there is unfortunately a truth, as was mentioned. Where were you 30 years ago? There is a truth to the fact that we sometimes write things that we shouldn't write. We sometimes write things that we shouldn't write. I'll tell you what, one of the biggest problems, though, that I have seen in myself, and again, I'm going to say in you, is that when you write the wrong thing, you're not willing to take responsibility that you wrote the wrong thing. You say, what can I do? I already wrote it. What do you want me to do? The kid comes, you messed up my life. What do you want me to do? They messed it up. What do I want you to do? I want you to, they don't know how to verbalize it, but I want you to take responsibility and at least validate me that you messed me up. It's not me. It's your father or your mother. It's amazing how we go ahead and we're very quick to shift it to somebody else. There's a story about a child that came to their father, and said, Daddy, where do I come from? Well, I'm not feeling so good now. Maybe we could talk about this never. So where do I come from? Well, a long, long time ago, there were monkeys. And over time, we came about. Yeah, sounds silly, right? Mommy goes, a couple hours later, Mommy, where do I come from? Well, do you also not feel well, Mommy? How did you know, son? Well, God created man. Man had a family. And then we come from that family. At the dinner table, the daughter says, Mommy or Daddy, one of you lied to me. So what do you mean, honey? Well, Daddy said that we come from monkeys. And Mommy said that we come from Adam and from, right? So the mother says, okay, I was talking about my side of the family. Daddy, I don't, okay. So we shift the blame to somebody else that would happen. So you wrote something wrong. Number one, if you don't have a child yet, and if you're not married yet, now's the time to start thinking about this concept that we're about to go ahead and write a book, a tremendous book. We're going to write a whole book. And to stop and think for a second, what do you want to write? Where do you want your kid to be? What do you want them, how do you want them to see life? And if you wrote already and you did the wrong thing, to be willing to take responsibility for the fact that you wrote the wrong thing. I think sometimes parents are a little bit too prideful to say they made any mistake. And the negative impact that plays out through their life. And if you as a parent don't know what I mean to your child, then just look up at your own parents and at the ways that they did things that they shouldn't perhaps have done. I know that we tried the best that we could under the circumstances. Nobody's saying that you didn't. Fine, so you tried. But were you wrong? Did you do something that was wrong? Yes, I did. The best way to apologize is to apologize and then say, but. That's always very meaningful. When you totally just undo everything you just said. Not, I'm sorry, but let me explain I was doing the best I can. You could say, I messed up. I never ever would have wanted this to happen. I love you more than anything in the world. And I apologize that perhaps I did something in a way You perceived like that. That's the way you perceived it, then fine. No, why would you ruin it? Take responsibility. Now, what about if you're the one who somebody wrote something not good for you? What if you're the one and your parent isn't willing to do such a thing like that? They're not willing to do it, so what do? So to quote Rabbi Dr. Abraham J. Twersky, he had a great line. Is it true that our parents messed us up in the areas that they messed us up, making it easy? Yes or no? Gentlemen, no, you guys are good? What are you doing here? Is it true that our parents messed us up? The answer is yes. But now it's your choice whether you would like to stay messed up. You know how many people live their life at? It's just sad to hear a person in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s still saying, because my mother, my father. When are you going to grow up a little? What does that mean? That means to say, what happened did happen. There's a certain reality. But now I'm going to take control of my life. Okay, different talk. Let's talk about this one now. That was your way out, parents. You could say, see, we messed up and now you work on it. But let's take a look, take a step back again. What are we writing over here? What are we writing? What are we doing? Are we giving over ideals and concepts that they're able to go ahead and grow from? Now, how do you do that? So I was talking with a few youngins this weekend. Perhaps they may or may not be in the room right now. It was early in the morning, on Shabbos morning. And I challenged them with a question that's a well-known question for those that it is well-known to. And that question is, don't underestimate the power that you have as a parent to understand the fact that we're going to be raising our children. When do you begin that process of raising your children? And they actually gave an amazing answer, one that better than I've ever seen, besides the person who got it right. But one of the best answers that I've heard. The story is told, the way that the story is told over, is a guy who brought his kid to his Rebbe. And he said, when do I bechanech? When do I start? My child is 3 years old. When do I start chinuch? I want to start. And what did he say? So there's different versions, apparently. I heard something like that. I said, you're 20 years too late. When I asked these young ladies, who may or may not be in the room, and may not be young ladies, and I said, when do you start? They said, when the child's born. And that was a great answer. It really was a great answer. It was better than saying 6, even though that's the discussion in the poskim about when chinuch may start. Practically, in terms of a halachic entity. However, in terms of a hashkafic life understanding, not a discussion of milk and meat, basa v'chalav, not a discussion, right, waiting 6 hours or not a discussion of Kriya Shema, not a discussion of Natil Sedayim, although maybe that should be done also. But not the discussion about that. That's a real deal. That's a discussion. Be makbid on Natil Sedayim, and it was to do for the kid. But anyway, not going into that, but hashkafically understanding. When does that start? Answer, says the Gemara in Sukkah, the well-known story about a young lady who unfortunately left the fold, ended up marrying a Greek official and speaking negatively about the Mizbeach, about where sacrificial offerings were brought. And the Chachamim fined her, and they fined her parents. They have a kenas. She got a fine for speaking like that. And her family got kenas also. And the Gemara has a few different discussions about it. And one of them asks, okay, you fined her, why are you finding her family? One of the answers is, anything that a child says, omida'av, omida'im, either came from the father or it came from the mother. So why are we finding the parents? The answer is because the child doesn't say something on their own. The child's coming from somewhere. It's coming from either the father, coming from the mother. Now, in our day and age, unfortunately for some, it's now shifted. It's Omid the Av, Omid the Aim, Omid the iPhone. It's a very sad thing, a sad reality. And what I'm going to say right now might also be connected to Judaism, but I would give the same advice to any human. Giving your phone a child, you give them a phone at the age of 3.5 with total access to everything, you've just given over the pen to the entire world to write whatever they want on your child's brain. This is not, let me be very clear. This is not a Jewish thing. I have relatives that are not religious. Do not let their kids watch television, movies. Nothing to do with Judaism. It has to do with being a human. It has to do with growth, with being a person who can develop and think and play and learn and grow. And then we give them this opportunity. What a beautiful thing we gave them, right? This device where they could look at things that will destroy them forever. And then we wonder, what happened to my child? One line, I think about this, like if I could have a Hu Haya Omer, that Chinese guy in Pirkei Avos. If I can get a Hu Haya Omer, then I would love this to be my Hu Haya Omer. He said, don't be surprised if your child turns out the way in which you raised them. So many phone calls and emails. What do I do with my kid? They're doing this, they're doing that, the other. Let me speak a little more. Can I get to know you? Like, what's going on? What's the story? What happened? And then it comes out. Shocking. It's like the kid who walks into school. The kid who walks into school. He's like, this is how he walks in. It's like, he's like, yo, what's up, everyone? Yo, like doing a thing. Yeah, L.A., New York, East Coast side. And then the teacher's like, okay, can't wait for PTA. Cannot wait. And the father walks in, what up, what up? You the teacher, what up? I don't know where your son got it from. Am I exaggerating? No. The answer is, pick another example of it. You know what I'm saying? What's happening, we're just extensions of that concept. A parent tells me, I don't know what to do with my kid. He only goes to shul to the late minyan on Shabbos. Late. He goes to the late minyan, late. The minyan starts 1 in the afternoon. And he gets there, Motzei Shabbos. And he says, I'm not late, I'm early for Ma'ariv. He goes to late minyan late. It's really late means 9 o'clock. He walks in 9:45, 10. He just talks the whole time. I know this father. His father also only goes to shul once a week on Shabbos. He goes to the early minyan. The early minyan is 8 o'clock. Because I don't know what it is. It's funny, you forget your past. At least I forget my past. And in Eretz Yisrael, the minyanim on Shabbos, the late minyan is 8. That's a late minyan. You could always find, again, a 3 o'clock minyan. But I'm saying, standard protocol, you go to the shuls. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Por favor, después no ahora en la clase media. Gracias. But you go now, and the minyanim there is 7 o'clock, 7:30, 8, 8:15. There, the early minyan's 8 o'clock, stark. And he goes late to the early minyan. That happens not to talk or whatever. I say, what do you expect? You barely go to minyan. You don't go the entire week. And they live very close to a shul. You don't go the whole week. And then you wonder why your kid doesn't go or they go late. Where do you think it came from? The best is when a parent yells at a child when the child behaves like the parent. All the child is doing is mimicking what they learned from you. And we can't handle our problems, so we have to take it out and crush, just like we crushed our own issues inside of ourselves. By not willing to work on them, let me quickly crush the kid who's reminding me of my issues. My friends, this is scary, yeah. Oh, I like it. It's a great beginning. Oh, take it. Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. What's the answer? What's the answer? No, not what to deal with it. I'm asking, how do you answer that question? It's a good question, right? Question is, we did everything perfect and still. So what are you telling me that that's the issue? I know a person who once drove drunk and they didn't get into an accident. It happened. I missed it. I'll say it again. I know people that were bad parents and the kids made it out amazingly. I mean, it's just like, it's the classic, Avram Avinu had a Yishmael and Yitzchak had a Esau. You're right. But what, should I talk to the exceptions? You're right. So what do you do in that circumstance? Nothing more than I'm telling you now. You already got there. 1 second. So what I'm pointing out over here is, I agree with that. And that's the unfortunate, but when people ask me questions like this, which is a very valid question, these type of questions are the exceptions to the rule, not the rule. In which case, if it's the exception to the rule, if I walk in and start giving classes about exceptions, everyone will argue with me, that's not the general rule. So I'll say, you're in the wrong class, this is the exception room. You know what I mean? So I'm in the general, and you're right, you are correct. There are things like that happen, and there's outside factors that happen, and there are teachers, and there are friends, and there are neighbors, and there are people, that happens 100%. But one thing to understand is that if we treat our kids in the way which is not right, then it's a lot more likely that it's going to go in that direction. That's all I'm saying. Yes. Yeah. But then what closed doors? Of course we don't. No, but okay, I hear. Okay. Sounds familiar. I think I said it a minute ago, right? Yeah. I'm asking him. Yes. A person do everything wrong and the kid comes out right. Everything right. I'm going to disagree with something. Forgive me for this. Or don't. I'm okay. I don't believe it's all mazel. I believe mazel could be involved. I absolutely do not believe it's all mazel. A person can mess something up. Say it again. It's not. Oh, a shaitel as mazel. I have no idea what just happened. As long as you gotta, fellas, am I right or am I right? The shaitels have mazel. You know what I'm saying? I'm pointing out, yes, there's mazel. Listen, I don't know what's going on. I don't know. I know I need a shaitel. I get it. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say. Whatever. A toupee. Oh, a toupee is mazel. I get it. I'm not arguing the fact that there's mazel involved, but I am going to say a person can ein mazel b'Yisrael. They could destroy somebody. There's the power of such a thing. That's all I'm saying. We have such a power to do such a thing. It's a scary, scary concept. And therefore, we've got to check ourselves before we wreck someone else. That's it. Now, this concept of halomi yelad l'ma'u dove, so for those who perhaps don't have children or older, it's not going to, you feel like you don't apply to you. That concept applies to all of us in many different types of circumstances. Example, I have a friend that called me up. I was in Eretz Yisrael. It was 10:30 in the morning. I was on Rehov Yamsuf 10, apartment 14. The year was 2003. I don't know if any of that is true, but when you say it like that, everyone's like, oh, very fascinating, But it is true, except for the 2003. It may have been 2004. It was 2004. It was 2005. But it was between 2003 and 2006. That I know because I remember the apartment that was in. It was 2004. And I get a phone call from a friend of mine. Anybody here familiar with a Dunkin' Donuts on the corner at the end of West Broadway that meets up with, what's it, Rockaway Turnpike? Is that where it is? Like that little, yeah, Dunkin' Donuts. Is it Yashan? Is it not? I'm just saying. There's a Dunkin' Donuts there. 24 hours? Is it still 24 hours? I know when I was a lad, it was 24 hours. Now, for those who are unfamiliar with what I'm talking about, this is a corner of quite a busy intersection. We're talking about the road that takes you to a little airport called JFK. That's the beginning, to Rockaway Boulevard, I think. Rockaway Turnpike, right? Rockaway Turnpike, take you all there. So my friend calls me up and he says to me the following. He says, is it yichud for me to be in the parking lot of Dunkin' Donuts? Now it's 10:30 a.m. in Israel, which means it's 3:30 in the morning. Now some of you are thinking like, why would that be, huh? You machmir? Well, for those, again, unfamiliar and uninitiated, there is an issue of a man and a woman being together in a closed space where no one else is going to be there, or even in an open space where no one else is going to be there. If you're not Yerei Shamayim, then even here. All right, that's the Gemara, by the way. The point is that considered a problem? So, you notice when you're on speaker. I was like, I was just Plony. I feel bad never because like his mom named him Plony, but he says, I said, Plony, am I in speaker? He said, why? Oh, never mind. Would you happen to know someone who's in a scenario like this perhaps now? And he said, why? I said, listen, I have really bad phone reception. Dial up into say, let's talk later. Now, let's think for a second. Just let's talk like halacha for a second. I picked a very particular circumstance which actually occurred. In a very busy intersection in a place which is open 24/7. At 3:30 in the morning, though. So is it as busy? Absolutely not. Are the people going to Dunkin' Donuts? Sure. How many? Me. And I'm in Israel. So there's no one left. Now let's say technically it's not a problem. Let's say technically it's not a problem. This guy was on a shidduch date. You called it, huh? This guy's on a shidduch date with now his wife. They got married. Thank God. Everything's great, I think. You never know. But this guy's on a shidduch date. And I afterwards spoke to him. I said, let me tell you something. Even if what you're doing is okay, you are writing something. Because every interaction you have with a person, when it's a brand new interaction, is a blank sheet of paper and a fresh ink. As Head and Shoulders says, you only have one chance to make a first impression. And then there's some, I think it's a girl, that goes like, and the hair is just mazel everywhere. And there's like, I still have no idea what's going on. Exactly, yeah. Head and Shoulders, it's a dandruff control. Because there's only one chance to make a good impression. And that's the reality of it. That's what's happening. When you meet someone, you're going ahead and you're creating a certain reality. You're creating a certain beginning. They're going to look at you like that now. You ever had somebody you looked at the first impression, it wasn't so positive, and later it turns out they're actually amazing. But you still have a hard time shaking that first impression. There are many people that don't like me. First impressions. It happens. And second and third sometimes. But it comes down to, are we giving over that? So that's something we should all be familiar with. But in particular when we're dealing, if you don't have a kid yet, understand something. Omida'av, omida'im. The greatest educational experience that anybody has, there is a language learning program called Rosetta Stone. It's also a stone called Rosetta Stone. They based it off the stone. And I have this program in Spanish. as you could probably have guessed over the weekend. And it's brilliant. Their slogan is, learn a language like a baby. Learn like a baby. What does that mean? What it means is that you don't sit with a kid as they're getting older and sit them down and go, look, and you put in front of them, apple. A-P-P-L-E, apple. Repeat after me, apple. What is this? Apple. Good. Did you get it? What you do is you just talk. And the kid just experiences. And then the kid starts to draw parallels and understanding. And they go, here, you go and say, here's the bread, and you give a tray with bread and milk. And they're not clear. They don't know if it's the tray that is bread, if it's the bread that's bread, or if it's milk that's bread. And that's why it's so funny when a child says, my kid the other day was complaining, he wants a cucumber. So I give him a cucumber. He goes, I want a cucumber. I'm like, here's a cucumber. I'm like, all right, here's a cucumber. He goes, cucumber. I don't know what's going on here. Do you want a different cucumber? He's like, I want a different cucumber. And he wouldn't take the cucumber to find it. I'm like, okay, so you show me where the cucumber is. So we open up the thing. He's young. He's 16. We open up the thing. And he said, no, he was like, at the time he was 2. He's now 3. I mean, how he's grown. And he opens up and he points at cookies. It goes, cucumber. I was like, they teach you like nutrition in school, and they said cucumber, and you think that's a cucumber? Like, what did you think? He must have seen a cucumber next to the cookie, and when we said the cucumber, he just thought it was a cucumber. Kids learn, just like all of us, based off experience. And if you want to know what your child's going to look like, generally, take a look at you. Well, it goes according to the mother's brother. If they have hair, then it'll be a good shidduch. If the hair turns this way, or if it turns that way in the back, it'll be a new baby. Understand how powerful this is. So how are we modeling? What are we modeling? Remember one time my daughter did something she shouldn't have done. It was so bad I don't remember what it was. But I yelled at her for what she had done. I yelled at her. Then my wife was like, all right, my turn, tag. Let's do it, you know? She's about to go in and yell at her. I said, you can't do it. She was not fair. You had your turn. I said, next time, you get one upsies, you know? She said, why can't I yell at her? I said, because I already yelled at her. She said, yeah, but so what? I have what to add. I want to be mosif. I said, you can't yell at her. Why? Because if you yell at her and I yell at her, who yelled at her? If you yell at her and I yell at her, who yelled at her? What's the answer? The entire world just yelled at her. Huh? What's a parent to a child? The entire world. They don't know anything else. And I know those who have problems with their parents, like, not true. I will never be like my mother. I'll never be like my mother. And then you meet someone in the street, hey, you look just like your dad. No! Understand. What are you talking about? You grow up in a home, you're going to start. I love when I find people that say, like, I'm nothing like my parents. And then the parent goes, I am nothing like them. Nothing like. Really? No similarities at all. What do you mean? I'm religious. They're secular. Great. You picked one thing where you're different. The other 99.9 things, you're exactly the same. Of course, there's differences. We have our own individuality. We're all unique, just like everyone else. Understand how powerful that is. We are teaching them, and we're giving over, and we're modeling such a concept. So what does that mean? That means we have to be real. And we have to raise them the way that we want them to turn out. How do you do that? By living the way that you'd like. And this is where it comes up, the classic kids at risk. Kids at risk, you know, Nebuch, that means different things in different stages. I don't know what that means. I think now it means like off the derech or something. When I was a kid, it meant marijuana. Right? Now marijuana is like a mitzvah. Right? But it's like, now it's like it's Coca-Cola, Lamashal. I'm not going into what that means because people are younger. What it used to have in the 1930s in it, a certain amount of milligrams. Come to recognize it's, wow. we have to live a certain way and be real with such an idea. It's kids at risk. I mean, kids at risk. It's parents at risk. And the kids are just perpetuating what their parents are doing. You ever meet someone, like we said in the beginning of the PTA, you meet someone and then you meet their parents and you go, oh, now I get it. What's going on? Similarities, what's happening? So you have to live up to a certain ideal. Model a certain idea. And don't be surprised if they turn out like you raised them. If you teach them a certain concept and then they live with that concept, just not in the way that you were hoping they were going to, but they live with that concept. L'moshel. Phone rings. Hello? Is your mother home? Think she's dead? Or she wants to kill someone. I'm not sure what she's motioning. You teach the kid to say you're not home. Tell them I'm sleeping. The person's like, could you tell them I hear that they're sleeping? And then you wonder why they lie to you. And they go, I told you to lie only in that area. Someone here shared with me a story about a boy. He's not in the room now. I know where he is because I went to the other room and I saw him. He didn't come here. But he shared with me the following story. He said he has a neighbor, a non-Jewish couple with children, and their child has such a mouth that says, I don't know how to say it, they don't say nice words, appropriate words, whatever that means to you. And so he went to the parents politely and said, excuse me if you don't mind me saying, like, forgive me, but maybe just, your child, I don't know, give me a name. Your child, Guillermo. My little Ankar, he's hearing him say things that, I don't, if it's okay, like, forgive me. So the parents like, oh my, we are so sorry. Guillermo, vámonos. Only because you said Guillermo. If you would have said something, I'd be like another accent. But he said, come over here. So the boy comes over, and he says, are you using, language that you shouldn't use or something? He goes, yeah, but mommy, that's how you and daddy speak. She goes, how many times did I tell you? When mommy and daddy talk like that, close your ears. Are we different than that in other areas of life? Are we showing things? I remember my son once when he was little, he looked up at the moon. I said, you like the moon? He goes, yeah. I said, you want it? He goes, yeah. I said, just jump then. Jump, son. He started jumping. I went in the house. I came back outside like 5 minutes later. He's out of breath, still jumping. I said, what are you doing? He goes, the moon. I said, oh, I was just joking. He said, why did you lie? I said, I didn't lie. I was just joking. What's a joke? Well, it's a lie that's okay. It's a lie that's okay. Next day, kid comes home from Gan. How was Gan? How was kindergarten? Good. Somebody died today in Gan. What? I'm just joking. You're not allowed to joke like that. Why? You're just not allowed to, son. You're just not allowed to. What do you expect? We teach our children something and then they live up to it. You go and you yell at your kid, the whole world yelled at them. You lie to your child, who just lied to them? The whole world. I don't understand why my kid has trust issues. What do you mean you don't understand why your kid has trust issues? Because the world lied to them. The world, don't be silly. Oh, you're right, I'm so sorry that in your head it's silly, but in their head it's actually quite real. One of my favorites. It's not really, that was not true. It's not my favorite. It's actually a big pet peeve of mine when parents tell kids to share. 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 You know what the kid's hearing? Give away the thing that you have forever to someone else. Give to them what belongs to you, and they can take it and you don't get it. Oh, they know that's not what I'm saying. No, they don't. And even if they do, and if you have a Range Rover or a Lexus that I could borrow for a couple of days, share. You have a house I could take, share. Classic parent response. That's different. You are correct. I did give different examples. But it's exactly the same thing. What is it to a kid? I was walking by my child. They were playing with these little toys. Now we moved on. Pick-a-blocks was the other night. Now it's little people. They're playing with little people, and I knocked over one of the people like, you killed him. I was like, okay. That's a little extreme over there, little one, you know? To them, that's real. That's as real as you get they break off the arm of that little thing, they come crying. Why is it any different than when you get a dent in your car? You have your toys. They have their toys. Your toys are not toys to you, and their toys are not toys to them. They're real. Are we getting into their heads and actually understanding what we're doing? So let's just put this together. Not even quick recap. I just want to build this, understand something. Oh my goodness, I forgot to mention something. How ironic that the author of this Mishnah is Elisha ben Avuya. Isn't it ironic? Don't you think? I really do think. Because what happened to Elisha ben Avuya? He became Ankar. How did that happen? The Gemara says a series of reasons. One of them is discussed, like the Gemara was discussed on Tesvav in Chagiga. But the Gemara says that when Elisha ben Avuya would stand up from his learning, Sifrei Minin would fall off his lap. Heretical books of heresy, books of anti-religious concepts were on his lap. He was singing Greek songs, and he had ideas. And you know what happened to him? I remember when I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, it turns out maybe it's not so good, but anybody know what Archie comics are? So when I was younger, we used to go to school, and you had your social studies book. You know, it was a big, thick book. And Archie was like this small guy. So you just put it right in. And then the teacher's like, Friedman, read. I'm like, Veronica, no. They're like, what page are you on? I'm like, I think I'm on the wrong page. Are we still talking about the Industrial Revolution? What's happening? I was by Yom Kippur somewhere, and there was a boy who had a machzer, a Yom Kippur prayer book. And in it, he had a comic that was taller. I said, just put down the book. And he did. He put down the machzer. It's like, Sifrei Minin, from the time that Elisha ben Avuya was a young child, Halomed Yeled Lama'udome, when he was a young child, he learned heretical ideas. Ideas that were the antithesis. That's fancy for the opposite. Yeah, there you go. You're welcome. You know, people get up here, ladies and gentlemen, phenomenologically speaking, I don't want to sound ephemeral, but I believe it's extraneous in this life. Now, can we talk normal, you know? My brother and I are 2 years apart. 1 year, 364 days apart. I'm June 6th, don't forget, he's June 7th. He's 2 years old, 1 year, 364 days older than me. He calls me his second birthday present. He's been trying to return the whole life. Amazon wasn't working. There's the whole thing. We were never in school together, but we ended up for a very small time in Beis Medrash Talmud. If you know what that is, that's all I'm going to say. We ended up in a Beis Medrash together. First time we're ever together, because 2 years younger, you know, we're in elementary school, different classes. High school, we were in different high schools. Then finally, we ended up in this Beis Medrash together. And we were once standing by the bima, and we were fighting, like brothers do. But this time it was the Niskaraita, you know? We were pulling out double thumbers like you ain't ever seen. You know what I'm saying? We were pulling out, Did a few of those, one of that. But we're fighting it. So the Mashgiach comes over. Whoa, what are you guys fighting over? We're learning a sugya in Shabbos. We're learning a Gemara. And I said what my part is. And he goes, my brother said his part. And then the rabbi smiled. He said, you're saying the same thing. He just turns to my brother, you sound brilliant. He turns to me and says, you sound less brilliant. That's it, That's it. I use a lot of pronouns, I don't mean, oh, Shem. I actually use pronouns. I'm going to say, I can't say anything anymore. I was using, anyway, my point is, where was I? Bring me back. Guillermo. Where did Ankar? He fell off his lamp. From the time he was a child, and it says, Alomid Yeled, he's the one who says, you teach a child what's it compared to, like fresh ink on a blank piece of paper. So on his blank piece of paper, he had written over there heretical ideas. Can you grow and become great? He became a Tana. He raised to the highest of heights, but it all came tumbling down. Come on, is that possible? The answer is yes. To the point where he was on the top of the top and then he fell all the way down. Because in his roots were these concepts and these ideas. Which is why, if you don't have a child yet, this is where we have to take it extremely seriously. What are we going to say to our child? How are we going to live our lives? What are we going to model? And if we've already made certain mistakes, I'll start with my wife. She's not here, so, okay. And if we've already, like myself, I've made certain mistakes, to have the courage to be able to speak that out and help them work on that foundation. That it shouldn't chalila. One day, all of a sudden, everything seemed fine, and all of a sudden, I don't mean extreme things happening, different discussion. But I mean when there weren't extreme things happening, all of a sudden they take a turn. Maybe because it was something in the foundation that wasn't necessarily as strong as it should have been. So my friends, let's put it all together like the bishop says right in the beginning. He says, let me know how dumb, and somebody goes in, it's like writing on a fresh piece of paper, or somebody goes a little older, what happens? The kids remember the darndest thing. Is there nothing else in their brain? Yay! And of course they're going to remember it. What do you expect to happen? You go out and it's going to go, it's only the Av, only the Aim. And I came from the father, came from the mother. What up, what up, what up, what up? If we wonder where it came from, they're just mimicking, they're just passing on, going on and on and on, exactly what they learned. They're just presenting it and going a little bit further. Come to recognize this idea. It's only the Av, only the Aim, only the cell phone, only the iPhone. We're giving over our kids this control to be able to go ahead and see anything there in the world. Then we wonder, who are you, Omer? Don't be surprised if your children turn out in the way in which you raise them. There's exceptions. Don't understand, there's mazel. Don't understand the fact of per plus, right? Or head and shoulders, whatever it may be. Understand, my friends, the fact this is so powerful. We're the authors. We are the authors. And what are we writing? And if we wrote something that wasn't okay, so sometimes you got to fix that. We have to be willing to fix it. But I did the best I can. Monkey, understand? Take responsibility for what's going on over there. And be able, is it true that maybe our parents ourselves messed up? I just know. It says, yeah, what happened? Parents do. Maybe they messed us up. But it's our choice to decide if we want to stay messed up or not. Live up to that concept. Why'd you lie to me? Honesty. What does it mean, honesty? I'll be there in 5 minutes. I'll be there in 5 minutes. Anyone ever said that? I'll be there in 5 minutes. Were you there in 5 minutes? I never promised my children ever anything. I never ever used the word promise. You could ask my kids, like, did you promise? I said, no. I don't use that word, because when a person uses the word promise, that means you are now saying that if you don't say promise, that you're not telling anything. No, I promise. Oh, so you mean if you said it without a promise that you're lying to me? Do your words mean something? You say you're going to do something, do you do it? With my child, and I learned this the hard way. When they ask, can you do something? I say, yeah, I'll do it tomorrow. That's a mistake. I say, I'm going to do it, hopefully, sometime in the future, Be'ezer Hashem. If it works out, maybe, Bli Neder. My child said they wanted a cereal called Kariot. Kariot, for those who are familiar, is a very nutritious pillow of chocolate and nugget. That's literally, it's so good. So it must be healthy. So my child says they want. I said, okay, I'll get it for you. You'll have it for breakfast tomorrow. That's how I learned the hard way. I get into bed. I lie down. And then I remember. What do I remember? Ma'ariv. Every man's nightmare. Okay, then I remembered, oh no, I said I was going to get karaoke. Okay, I'll just get it. I told them they're going to have it for the morning. I'm so tired. I'll just put chocolate on cornflakes. Throw some French fries in. I'll say it's a new thing. Frozen French fries. I got out of bed and I went to 3 different places, all closed. Then I went to Rechavia, as a 24-hour place. All good or all four, or four good all for one for all. There were 3 guys outside with swords. I don't know exactly. And I got the karaoke. The next morning they wake up. They're like, karaoke? You wake up, karaoke? How do kids remember everything? That's the only thing on their brain. They went to sleep on a karit and they wake up with karaoke. That's what happened. And I said yes, and I gave them cornflakes. I put chocolate all over it, and I threw in some French fries. They said, what's that? I'm like, it's a new flavor. Like, no, it isn't. I'm like, fine, here. But I went out and I got it. Because I'm incredible. But enough about me. Ladies and gentlemen, enough about me. Just an anecdote. To understand, are we being honest? Don't say something unless you're actually going to do it. In other words, never commit to anything. Don't tell my wife, I'm scared of commitment. Understand this concept. Be real with it. And Be'ez Hashem, if we do that, and now let's get into, yes, is Mazel involved? Is Mazel involved? And yes, like the Briskerov says, what do you got to do? You got to daven like crazy. But don't just daven. We got to do something. It's a classic of Noach. I remember sitting in the Beis Medrash of Noach Weinberg. He always get up on Thursdays to give a shmooze. And he said, he'd always get up and say, first line, he'd be like, so, did you do the parsha? Did you look at the parsha? There was always that sucker. Yes, Rabbi, I did. Then it's like spot, like right on that guy. So how do you explain this? He's like, Rabbi, I didn't see that verse. Hashem and Moshe Rabbeinu have a conversation. They get to Yam Suf. They get to the Yam Suf. They're about to, they look behind them. The Mitzrayim are coming. The Yam Suf, the sea is there. And they're like, oh no, what do we do? So they daven. Ribono shel olam, ani mivakesh mimcha, b'chol libi, please open the sea. Right? Just do something, please. We're going to die. Before we know, we'll fry. Help us. What did he say? Those are copyrighted. He goes and says, Hashem, what do we do? Hashem says, what are you talking to me for? Go. Now hold it down. Hold it down. Are we supposed to daven? The answer is yes, we're supposed to daven, and we're also supposed to do. Which means don't play this game. Shem Yazor, it's Mina Shemayim. We get so religious when we mess up. We do something wrong and we say, Hodul Hashem Kitov, it's Hashem. Stop blaming Hashem for your silly choices. Classic, why do bad things happen to good people? Oh, my foot's killing me. You tied your shoe too tight. Yeah, but why would God have, don't I have Bechira? Yeah, you made a bad choice. Why do bad things happen to good people? They don't. You're bad. It's amazing. Okay, there's more to talk about. Ayin, Torah anytime, another class. But my point is, at the end of the day, it's not a daven. But we also have to work on ourselves. We have to grow from these experiences. Be willing to go through pain in order for our children to really actually succeed. Not pashut at all. Sar gidul banim. Not simple at all. But Be'ez Hashem, if we make the right choices and we're willing to at least try to do something proper, then Be'ez Hashem, we're going to be wildly successful. I have to just say, even though they're not here, Yasher Koach and say a thank you. This is my finality right now. I'm bouncing like no one's business. I gotta go. But I want to thank, obviously, Project Inspire for making this happen. And they're not here, so you have to clap. But most importantly, as I've said in the past, I have to thank every one of you for coming. Because if you were not here right now, this would have been very awkward. Have a great day. Bye.